Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Astro Kotimi, and welcome to my show, The Divine GPS Navigator. Today we'll be talking about Saturn in the water sign of Scorpio, as well as Hurricane Harvey. Saturn is our karmic teacher. It reminds us of our earthly limits and to be good stewards here on Earth. It has returned to what we call a direct motion in the water sign of Scorpio for its final cycle, and it will complete this motion November 4th, this cycle November 4th. However, August 25th, which was a couple of days ago, was also the day that Hurricane Harvey struck Corpus Christi, Texas, which was only 4 days after our very intense new moon and solar eclipse in the fire sign of Leo. Now, there were some definite similarities in both time and season, and a little bit in astrology with Hurricane Katrina. However, with Hurricane Harvey, there are some other conflicts that were going in the heavens. And when some of those outer planets, we had Jupiter and the moon in a very close conjunction, and they were polarized with what we call an opposition to Uranus, which is in that very fiery sign of Aries. And there's also what we call another conflict, or we could say a square, with Pluto in, again, the fire sign of Sag. So these very different planets create a great deal of conflict here, both in the heavens and here on Earth. In addition, the sun, of course, continues through Leo, and Mercury is there as well, again, creating a lot of heat. And Mars is still in the water sign of Cancer, and the North Node is in Cancer, which is one of our karmic lessons. So as we can see, there's a great deal of both conflict as well as heat, and these very different elements exploding through this hurricane. Now, what's really important is not only the fact of this very devastating hurricane that's on its way through the state of Texas, but that it also has been called unprecedented in the amount of rain and flooding that it's bringing with it. So the bigger question that I have today is, what can all of us learn from this? We have 10 weeks for Saturn to move through this water sign of Scorpio. So there are definitely karmic lessons for all of us to complete as both individuals and as a planet. Now, whether we live in Texas or even have a loved one in Texas, the point is, as a community, we're being asked to look at this intense Earth disaster. Now, for most of us, the first thing we'll say is this is a glaring example of global warming. And I completely agree, as it looks like we're threatening life on Earth each day, as well as life on Earth for those who will be here in the future to carry on for us. But now today I want to know what is really beneath even all the global warming. What is beneath all of this? And how can we awaken to this bigger message? How can we really use this 10-week cycle to open things up and really have some miracles and changes here, individually and on the planet? My big question is, have we forgotten our divine source? Have we forgotten those moments of gratitude each day and for being alive on this precious planet with people we love here on Earth? Have we really chosen materialism as our source instead? Do we need to have another global crisis, whether it's terrorism or this very intense disaster? What else is needed to open our hearts and our minds to what's really important right now? Now, Saturn, because it does go through this retrograde motion every year for 4 to 5 months, obviously there are many lessons for us to learn. This year was special because Saturn just began its new cycle in Sagittarius for a couple of months, since it began that cycle April 6th. And then as it began to move retrograde or backwards again, it did start to move back in Scorpio on June 9th. So that means from the 9th of June until November 4th, those few months, we are being asked to complete our last cycle of this karmic lesson. So what's it all about? Well, first we know that as we complete that, what we have to look forward to is Saturn moving forward in the new sign of Sag on November 5th and it will be there until February 1st, 2020. So that is a fairly significant period of time. But how can we use this time between now and then to complete the lessons and move on? Now, for many of us, this retrograde cycle that we've just completed gave us many opportunities, which were not always so comfortable. For many of us, we may have been completing some past life relationships, whether it was done consciously or unconsciously. It could have been done at work or with a personal friend. But the importance of completing that was to release any unproductive emotional attachments you may have had, or if you took on too much responsibility and began to feel resentful, then Saturn is asking you to release that. The energy is moving forward at a much quicker pace now that it's direct. And it's extremely important in these next 10 weeks to release any remaining resentments, because this is the time that that may escalate, and it really may have to be dealt with in crisis mode. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Now, Saturn in Scorpio is really about sharing those deep hidden secrets and those fears. They prevented us, all of us, from moving forward in our personal, our professional, and our romantic lives. However, the gift is, as you risk being vulnerable, you begin to trust yourself more as well as those around you. That scorpion loses its stinger, and it can rise and become this amazing phoenix. So we can develop deeper levels of intimacy with ourselves, with those we care about. And it may take you to some wonderful places, both internally, spiritually, and out in the world that you just didn't dream were possible while you were kind of locked down. Now, in this final cycle as well, many of you have been working really hard on all these different levels. So now is your momentum. But for some of you now, there may be a lot more focus. You may be a lot more productive than you were before. And that means there may be some greater success. For some people, it's even going to be recognition that you never dreamed was possible. Now, through all this hard work, for some of you, you may be asked to step up, take a little more responsibility, and get your lives a little more stable as you prepare for even this next cycle. But for some of you, I may have to put myself in this category as well, who have tended to take things a little bit too seriously, this may also be a time to let go a little bit, perhaps rest a little more, take a little vacation, or do something fun to learn to unwind, because both of those need to be balanced as we complete this cycle. It's so important. Now, I want to encourage all of you to be gentle with yourselves. And as we complete this final retrograde with with Mercury in the fire sign of Leo. I know it's been a little intense. It's so fiery. And people have told me they just don't feel clear and it feels frustrating. I totally understand. So if you can just be willing these next 10 days, do a tiny bit more reorganizing, perhaps of your space or even your ideas. You might want to review a little more of your goals, both personally and professionally. And I encourage you to also consider reevaluating some of your finances. By doing this important work, as things open up, and as I've mentioned before, this is also an important time for these next 10 days to keep both your weekly and your daily calendars open. Even though it may be a little frustrating, let's remember that if an appointment gets canceled or delayed, that as a result, you may have an opportunity to connect with a new person. There may be some new opportunity that comes your way you hadn't expected. And this may open up some just tremendous, exciting new possibilities. I know personally, I've had so many interruptions, changes, delays, and sometimes one or two every day. It's been very inconvenient. But as a result, some wonderful new opportunities have been presented that are far worth and have far outweighed that inconvenience. I thank you so much for joining me today on my show. I'm Astro Coach Amy. This is the Divine GPS Navigator. I wish you a wonderful week. Please feel free to contact me at Astro Coach Amy if you're interested in a reading or you have questions. Bye-bye.